Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
We did the initial work on it to remove the risk to life safety in that space, but that doesn't mean there's not still more work to come.
Some people on the North Shore forced from their homes by torrential rain last weekend are able to return as more rain is in the forecast. Plus,
on Sunday, the mail-in ballot count will continue in Victoria, and we'll also have recounts happening in Juan de Fuca, Malahat, and Surrey City Centre.
Elections BC has a busy weekend tallying up the final votes for BC's provincial election. When will we know a result? And Fatberg dead ahead. Metro Vancouver pleads with you not to tip that pan into the sink.
Please keep fats, oils, and grease out of the drain. Use your green bin instead.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. The search for a man believed to have been swept away in the Coquitlam River last weekend amid the torrential rain has ended sadly. The RCMP says the body of 59-year-old Robert Belding has now been found. Belding went missing last Sunday during that weekend's downpour. Search and rescue crews say a witness reported seeing Belding fall into the Coquitlam River as he tried to rescue a dog and was immediately swept away. The dog was later found after it made it back to shore. Belding's family and search and rescue crews scoured the river for days trying to find him. The RCMP says its thoughts are with Belding's family and friends. The CBC's Michelle Gassoub has more on the challenging search before Belding was discovered.
This is probably the most dangerous thing we do in search and rescue because water can be unpredictable.
Friday, water levels were finally low enough for searchers to safely enter the water. BC Hydro reduced discharge from the Coquitlam Lake Dam to lower the water flow. Still, this work is dangerous.
Slips, trips, and falls are the biggest hazard, and for our swiftwater teams as well. It doesn't take much to slide in and be swept away, even in knee-deep water.
Swiftwater teams used underwater cameras, kayaks, rapid deployment craft, and pack rafts to comb the length of the river all the way down to the Fraser. Search and rescue said on Sunday the water would have been treacherous, filled with debris and dead fish.
At this time of year, the temperature of this water is extremely cold. That makes the risk of hypothermia very high if you were to fall in. And during the summer, while this water might hit just below your knee, over the weekend when that rain was pouring down, this river was surging to dangerously high levels.
There is more rain in the forecast this weekend, and with it, a warning to stay vigilant. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Coquitlam.
On the North Shore, some people in Deep Cove are returning home after that severe rainstorm last weekend caused major damage in that community. But as Michelle Morton shows us, meteorologists warn strong winds and more rain are in the forecast this weekend.
Cleanup is underway for these 6 properties after an evacuation order was lifted last night. Residents were ordered to leave on Sunday after officials declared a state of emergency due to flooding. No residents were available for an interview today, and understandable, their hands are full clearing out mud and debris from their homes. Saturday's storm brought record-breaking rainfall to the area, overwhelming their stormwater system and causing significant flooding across the district.
We did the initial work on it to remove the risk to life safety in that space, but that doesn't mean there's not still more work to come. So we have sent messages to the homeowners making some recommendations for cleaning up some of the area around their houses.
That area of the North Shore is definitely going to see some more rain. Fortunately, it's not an atmospheric river and it's not a long duration rain event like we saw last weekend.
Meteorologists are warning strong winds and more wet weather are in the forecast throughout this weekend.
We will see probably 2 or even 3 shots of rain, one tonight late, kind of 10, 11 p.m., last till about 5, 6 a.m. And with it will come some winds. The winds will be very strong, maybe even gusts to 90 kilometers an hour for the kind of the south and west parts of the Lower Mainland.
We're focused on the catch basins and clearing out our stormwater management systems. I think our system should be able to manage just fine. But again, there are some areas that are still compromised from the storm last weekend, so we're going to be keeping a close watch on those areas.
Meanwhile, residents are being advised to have emergency kits ready for this weekend in case of any power outages from the storms. Michelle Morton, CBC News, North Vancouver.
Let's bring in Darius Madavi for our look at the weather as we look at more rain on the weekend.
Yes, that's right. We've got this low pressure system off Haida Gwaii. It's going to start moving in, steering some of those high winds around the island, especially and here in Metro Vancouver. So we've got a decent number of wind warnings in place as well. As we head into early next week, we've got a ridge of high pressure building in that should bring some temporary sunshine and maybe a bit of a relief from the showers. And then another low swoops in, bringing some more rain mid next week. Now, if we take a look at our moisture, you can see that being pulled in by that low pressure system here. And if we take a look across the province as well, here we go. There it is. Some wind coming, as we heard, very high winds, especially down here on the South Island, west coast of the island getting pretty high, but east coast, that's where we have those wind warnings. East coast of the island, South Island, Metro Vancouver, and up in Haida Gwaii. You can see those wind gusts reaching 88 kilometers per hour down in Victoria. As for tonight, though, we're going to see that rain start. Lots of moisture, especially down in the south, Dan. So be ready for a bit of a wet one.
Okay. Thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Well, new data from Environment and Climate Change Canada says heat waves are getting more intense because of human-caused climate change. The agency says this summer was the 4th warmest on record.
We know that heat waves are, in fact, the one of or the most deadly weather extreme affecting people. And if we think of the 2021 heat wave in BC, which was associated sadly with more than 600 deaths in British Columbia, that is a measure of how important heat waves are for human health.
The report shows an increasing frequency of heat spells that are lasting longer than ones recorded in previous years. The group says linking data on climate change with specific events has been pivotal for the research it's doing. We will likely not know the final outcome of BC's nail-biting provincial election until at least Monday. Election officials are getting ready to start the final process this weekend. Initial counts show the BC NDP are leading or elected in 46 seats, the Conservatives in 45, and the Greens in 2. 47 is needed for a majority. Elections BC staff say there are several steps to the final count process.
On Saturday, October 26th, officials in Victoria will start the mail-in ballot count, and they'll be starting with the races that are closest in the province. We'll be updating our website at 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. on Saturday with results from that count. Then on Sunday, the mail-in ballot count will continue in Victoria, and we'll also have recounts happening in Juan de Fuca Malahat and Surrey City Centre. We expect that the Surrey City Centre recount will be complete on Sunday, but the Juan de Fuca Malahat recount will go into Monday the 28th. And then on Monday the 28th, we're also counting absentee ballots in ridings across the province.
Homicide investigators say a youth has pleaded guilty to manslaughter after an 18-year-old was stabbed to death outside a high school in Surrey almost 2 years ago. Mahakpreet Sethi was attacked and killed in the parking lot of Tamanawit Secondaries in November of 2022. A year later, a youth was charged with second-degree murder. He wasn't named as he was a minor at the time. Police now say that accused has pleaded guilty to manslaughter in provincial court. He's scheduled to have a sentencing hearing in early January. The only high school in the new Westminster School District is moving to a staggered schedule next fall. That move comes as Surrey and other cities try to address school overcrowding as well. The chair of the new West District Parent Advisory Council says some call it a fishbowl.
The hallways are crowded, lining up for lunch at the cafeteria. You may stand there the whole hour for your lunch period and not get through and to be able to purchase your lunch. There are only 800 lockers in the school. Most students don't have a locker. Getting into the classes you want, if you are looking at post-secondary and have a plan for the courses that you need to enter into the program of your choice, you may or may not get those classes. You're having to take summer school to get those classes in because there's just not enough space in the classes for the students.
The Burnaby School District, meanwhile, announced that this week that 5 of its high schools may go to staggered scheduling next year. Almost 15 years after a fire tore through a hangar at a Prince George airport, a man has now been declared dead because of that blaze. He was facing serious allegations. Benita Brage spoke with reporter Jason Proctor about this, and a warning, this story does contain details some people may find troubling.
So Vernon Martin was the name of the guy, and he basically went missing, vanished, we'll say, in December 2009. And what's sort of particularly significant was the events preceding this. In the few days before, he had been confronted by his family, who he was very tight with, who had learned that he'd been accused of sexual assault against a number of extended family members years before. On the very morning that this fire happened, that he vanished in, an employee showed up at his house to confront him to claim he had sexually assaulted his son. And so Vernon Martin goes to work. He is last seen at this hangar in Prince George, heading up to the second floor office where he had an office. An hour later, this fire erupts, lasts for about 10 hours, but crucially, his body is never found. A will is later found, which has some other things attached to it that raise questions. But that's the central mystery here that has existed for so long. This man was sort of wanted in connection with things and went missing.
Why did it take so long to come to this conclusion?
Well, there's sort of two answers. One is a bit of a legal thing. In British Columbia, as in most places, you have to be not heard from at all by anybody for 7 years in order for a presumption of death to occur. And at that point, people can apply to declare you dead. So that's what happened with his family. In 2017, they applied, but it was opposed, as it sometimes is in this kind of case, by insurance companies, because he also had $9 million worth of insurance policies that he'd taken out hanging over his head at the time he went missing. So you can see the incredible mystery. The insurance companies argued no sign of his body, nothing, and they had a forensic anthropologist who said, you know, it's likely that he's alive, there's no chance he's dead. Ultimately, the family came up with another forensic anthropologist who says, actually, that's wrong. Somebody who worked on the Robert Pickton case who said it's most likely the debris from his body would have been scattered all over the place, so it would have been unlikely to have been found. The judge concluded, because there was, as I say, a will where he said, I'm sorry for what I've done, and I hope you can forgive me, that he most likely ended his life, declares him dead. End of the mystery, you know, legally. Who knows whether that sticks with the public.
They're called fishers, a medium-sized furry carnivorous mammal native to North America. And a pair of them were rescued in the Cariboo after their mother died. Now they're finally big enough to be released back into the wild. Have a look.
Most people, when I say, we have fishers, they're like, is that a bird? So lots of people call them fisher cats, and they are very arboreal. They have sort of a retractable cat-like claws.
We rescued these fisher kits in about June of this year because their mom was predated on. They've been reared at the Kamloops Wildlife Park for the past handful of months, and now they're almost ready to be released. We're going to be meeting Tracy at the Wildlife Park in the morning, hopefully trapping them in these trapping boxes, and then we will transport them to Lac La Hache, where we will be putting them in these soft release enclosures, which are kind of these like cages that are close to where we rescued them from. And they'll be in there for a few days so they get used to their surroundings. And then on Tuesday, we'll be opening up the gates, and then hopefully they run out.
They're doing very well. Actually, I've been quite pleasantly surprised at how well they've done. They're not stressed out in this environment, but they are gaining a lot of the skills I think they will need for hunting and being successful in the wild. It's been a good balance. We are extremely excited to be a part of this, especially because fishers are declining in British Columbia. The more we can know about their care and the ability to rehabilitate them, the better. So anything we can do to help fishers and even raise awareness of fishers through our social media channels, it goes a great deal, I think, to helping preserve the species.
Still to come, it's gross and expensive to clean up. The Fatbergs that are appearing in Richmond. Next.
So I know when when I really like a song if within the first 3 seconds I'm already vibing to it.
Hey, I'm Rohith Joseph. Vibin' is the new show all about discovering great new songs, fresh artists from across BC and beyond. Stream Vibin' on CBC Listen.
To Bowen Island now, where Metro Vancouver is selling 65 hectares of land at Cape Roger Curtis to the Bowen Island Conservancy. The deal helps resolve dispute between Metro Vancouver and residents there over plans to build a new regional park and a supervised camping site. Metro bought parts of the land that had been previously slated for housing development, but it faced stiff opposition from some people who didn't want to open up the area to visitors. Despite the backlash, Metro Vancouver filed a rezoning application with the Bowen Island municipality. Now with the sale, Metro says it will withdraw its application. Ever wondered what happens to the grease you might wash down the sink from a pan? It is not a pretty sight. Workers removed 50 tons of hardened grease, also called Fatbergs, from Richmond sewers recently. Metro Vancouver says that fats, oils, and grease solidify into a concrete-like material in our drains, leading to damaged pipes and expensive repairs. Officials are urging you not to tip it down the sink.
We'd like to remind everyone to please keep fats, oils, and grease out of the drain. Use your green bin instead. Restaurants should also do their part by following regulations. Make sure that they have grease traps installed, that they're the right size grease traps, and regularly clean and maintain them.
Metro Vancouver and its partner jurisdictions spend over $2.7 million every year to repair damage from the Fatbergs. Much-loved hot springs in Harrison Hot Springs have now been unexpectedly filled in with dirt and boulders. Known by locals as Hobo Hot Springs, they're in an area controlled by the Hot Springs Resort. Mayor Fred Talon says the resort had someone put rocks there to cut the risk and liability that comes with public use of pools. He says he will be meeting with the resort next week.
What's becoming clear to me today and over the last several days is that the residents of the village of Harrison Hot Springs are really interested in preserving and promoting the natural features of the hot springs, and in particular the hot springs that gives the village its name. I share this view, and I think the village should have greater influence or even control over these natural resources.
Talon says the hot springs are significant to the Stahelis First Nation and that they ought to have a say when it comes to the stewardship of the pools. Residents in the hot springs say they are shocked by what's happened.
It just doesn't make sense. People are really saddened that something that had free access to the public and outdoors in nature was destroyed. So people are really frustrated and upset.
CBC News has reached out to the resort but has not yet heard back. If you were in Vancouver, you might have noticed the time on pedestrian lights has gotten a little bit longer. Since 2018, the city has been rolling out what they call leading pedestrian intervals. Have a look. It means pedestrians get a few seconds head start crossing before traffic gets the green light in the same direction. Right now, the city has 61 intersections with leading pedestrian intervals. Traffic and data management officials say this will boost safety and avoid collisions.
By allowing the pedestrians to get into the intersection, even a few feet, it gets the pedestrian into that field of view of the motorist when they're trying to make the turn.
Officials say these extended walk lights have led to a 60% drop in high-severity crashes between pedestrians and cars. More are set to be installed, depending on the design, busyness, and existing turning signals. A BC doctor, considered a giant in Canadian sports medicine, who helped found the Vancouver Marathon, has died.
For our local riders, they need to get exposure. As a number of the athletes said here, they need to have exposure to pro athletes.
Dr. Jack Taunton was an Order of Canada recipient. UBC says Taunton overcame serious health complications to become a nationally ranked marathon runner, organizing local races that would evolve to become the Vancouver Sun Run and the BMO Vancouver Marathon. He was also Chief Medical Officer for the 2010 Olympic and Paralympic Games in Vancouver and Whistler. Dr. Jack Taunton was 77. A look at the day that was in Whistler, the Blackcomb Rendezvous there on the mountain. The town is set to see a mix of cloud and rain over the weekend. Darius Madavi will have a look at your BC-wide forecast coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Darius Madavi is here with our BC-wide weather forecast as we head into another weekend with a bit more precip.
Yes, that's right. And we're already seeing that rain hit the south coast. It's going to continue working its way inland, most of it falling overnight tonight across much of the south coast, but also overnight tomorrow night as well. There will be a decent dump, at least here in the lower mainland. We have wind warnings in place as well, because this time around the main concern is not going to be those accumulation amounts, although local flooding in a few spots is possible. It's going to be the wind. You can see here 88 kilometers per hour gusts in Victoria. Also expecting to see very high gusts for the North Island, east coast of the island, and up on Haida Gwaii, as well as here on the lower mainland. Most of that, though, is just going to be happening overnight tonight into maybe the very early morning. So if you're asleep, you should have missed the worst of it. Just be mindful of any tree branches or furniture that you don't want blowing around. If you take a look again, we have that wave of precipitation coming tonight. Then another one comes Saturday afternoon, although it doesn't quite make it to the lower mainland until those overnight hours. But if you are going to a Halloween party or what have you, maybe pick a costume that you can wear a rain jacket over without it ruining it. If we take a look heading into the end of the weekend, we start to see that drying out as we head into Monday, especially late Monday afternoon, evening. We should see a little bit more sunshine, or I guess just afternoon now that the sun sets so early. Precipitation also coming across much of BC, breaking into the interior as some snow. Higher elevations getting some snow, although those freezing levels are expected to come up through the weekend. And that next wave of precipitation arrives as we head into late Tuesday, into Wednesday. Hopefully, though, drying out for Halloween on Thursday. In terms of accumulation totals, I just want to highlight this is one of the higher bound models, but this is saying that through the weekend, we might expect to see these totals across much of the south coast and for the lower mainland. Places like Coquitlam and Maple Ridge, hard hit last weekend, are getting, once again, as usual, higher amounts than the other parts of the city of Vancouver, for instance, but not going to see anything too severe. Now, our highs are going to stay fairly consistent, so I'm just going to skip right over this, actually, because it's not that exciting. In terms of conditions across the province, some sunshine tomorrow, some sunny breaks at least. Victoria in that rain shadow, as usual, but pretty much across the province, just unsettled, showery, flurry-ish. And that's our story as well, Dan, here in Vancouver. Okay, Darius, thanks very much. Have a good weekend. You too. And thank you for watching us on CBC Vancouver News. For news anytime, please check our website, as you do, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is tomorrow morning at 6:30 on CBC Radio 1. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the weekend. Stay safe.